continue to seem to be moving. John, thank you so much for joining us with Paul and Craig. And I'm David Smoak. We do appreciate your time. What's been the reaction, not just from you, but from the city and Memphis fans throughout the area?
Well, I mean, I think it's, I think it's pretty unanimous. I feel like this university, and let me just kind of like explain sort of like where I come from on this. So, I'm not just somebody that covers the University of Memphis athletic department. I was born and raised here.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school there. I've never left this place. Like, I've been here my entire 34 years of life. And the fact that I get to work and make a living and raise my family and, do all the things in the place that I grew up in and was born in, like, that's a special thing to me. And so I would say my relationship to the University of Memphis is a very personal one. And so that's why my emotions are so personal. So I think that might help explain a little bit. I'm not just a guy that moved to Memphis to work, and I'm just like trying to get clout, and complain and whine about Memphis. It's, this is like literally the very fiber of my existence as a person. Right. So, but I think everybody is, exasperated. I think everybody is, beside themselves. It just kind of feels like we're Charlie Brown and Lucy keeps pulling the damn football. And I've been through this, right? I've been through this, and I've been through this with the Big 12 so many times through multiple commissioners, multiple athletic directors while at Memphis, multiple presidents even at Memphis. This is like the third time. In 2016, it was embarrassing because the Big 12 didn't end up expanding. Memphis believed it would. Memphis believed back in 2016 it was getting in. And then, of course, the Big 12 leaks that Memphis didn't even make the cut, like over Tulane, for example. And they didn't even expand. So that happened. Then in 2021, the Big 12 finally does expand. I think Memphis feels good about it. And they end up taking, 3 teams from the American that aren't Memphis. And then you circle back to today, after the Pac-12 flirtations last year, and you see this offer, this new, more than SMU did for the ACC, and for the Big 12 to say we don't even want your money. I just think it's a defeating moment. It's a defeating moment for the school. They're not going to give up. Obviously, I think there are some different things that they can still do, and I think it also shows they maybe have a little bit more money than was expected or projected. But I've always identified the Big 12 as a natural place for Memphis. It to me, it fits with a lot of the schools that are there, academically, athletically. I think if you're going by basketball, Memphis would be a top 7 to 8 team every year in the Big 12, which is not terrible. Like, that's not bad. That's a tournament team. So I think they'd fit in basketball, and obviously football has been, top 20. Both programs finished in the top 25 this year. Memphis basketball and Memphis football. So, they've done, I think, everything they can. It's just, they just can't get over the bridge.
John, do you think some of this was just a little behind when the door was open for them? Like, if they had maybe had this a couple of years ago, it might have been easier for them to be in the Big 12 as opposed to now, which surprisingly enough, the Big 12 says they didn't want that money.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. It's possible they didn't have it, right? It's possible that they didn't have the commitment. The world was a little different back in 2021. I don't think the desperation was quite where it is now. And so, I perhaps maybe Memphis could have gotten in over a Cincinnati, Houston. I don't know. Back then the problem was everything that we heard was the money was huge, but top 50 is pretty damn good as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, like, it's hard. It's impossible to know that. I think the Big 12 would tell you. I don't know this, but I think they would tell you that, hey, we're at 16. Like, if we're gonna add a 17th, it it better be worth our damn time and headache. And you know, obviously, I think the name of the game in college athletics is just always waiting on the chaos. And I think there is like this operating assumption that there will be chaos with the ACC, Florida State, and you know when that will be, who knows? Like I was talking about this on my show today. Like 15 years to the Big 12, to the Big 10, to whoever, it's not that long, right? Like that's not 15 years is 15 years. To Memphis, 15 years feels like a lifetime, because how do you survive it over 15 years in the American? You know, it feels like you can't. So it's just the urgency is just going to be different for the parties involved, and that's really the unfortunate thing.
John, you and I traded those texts, and one of the things you mentioned was moving to the goalpost. So let's go down a checklist. Something that has been mentioned about Memphis was the fact that obviously the stadium need to be renovated. They're doing that. Then they get it renovated, or they get it to where it is so much nicer, and yet, okay, it's not on campus. Academics, check, they're an R1. And then maybe concerns about just the city of Memphis. What are some of the other things you've heard that might be working against them, if that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the things. I think there's a perception that Memphis, and look, I'll be honest, I mean, it's probably well earned, but I think there's a perception of Memphis that it's just it's an athletic department that, you know, is always mired in some kind of scandal. Mm-hmm. Now, I think those like you know, it varies. Like the size of the scandal, the magnitude of the scandal, like this academic thing where a softball, you know, an academic advisor was paying softball. I mean, obviously that's not ideal, but it's not like, you know, I mean, Penny's name didn't even come up in the investigation by the NCAA. Like they cleared her of any wrongdoing. So I just think scandals vary, but I do think that is the reputation. So you work through that. You work through, yes, perceptions about the city and crime, although that would never impact anybody involved. It just would not. I mean, that's something that people in Memphis have to deal with. It's not something that, you know, the volleyball players at Baylor would ever have to worry about. You know, I think there are questions about, you know, when you because it's why the NBA doesn't want to expand right now, right? Like the NBA says, hey, we just got this brand new media deal. Why do we want to rush into, you know, in Las Vegas and Seattle? I mean, those are two obvious, like, expansion cities. Of course they'll add value, but even the NBA is like, hey, the owners don't want to, they don't want to split that pie up yet. They're not quite ready to do that. So if Memphis, who again, I think would fit into the athletic brand very well, but if they're not going to bring, you know, tangible, hey, 5 more, 10 more, $15 million more a year by their being here, is it really worth it to us? I also think another issue working against American teams that the Big 12 poached last go around suck. They stink. They've come to your league and they've done absolutely nothing, with the exception of Houston basketball, which was going to do that whether they played in the Big 12, whether they played in the it doesn't matter, right? Houston basketball was going to be good regardless. But Houston football, UCF's athletics, Cincinnati's athletics, they've all been getting their teeth kicked in. And I do think that hurts Memphis, because why would we want to add another, in their mind, right? And it's fair. Why would we want to add another program that is just going to be a bottom dweller, that's just going to, you know, make our league worse, actually, because they're not going to, you know, they're not going to be competitive. They're not going to be a top 4, top 5 team, because no other American team is. So I do. I mean, I hate it. And it disgusts me that all of this got leaked and Memphis made this offer not knowing that it was not even have a vote taken. Like, that part of it is embarrassing. But I do understand the Big 12 being hesitant about it. It makes sense.
So what do you think the next step is for them? Do they, I mean, I'm sure they've got multiple plans. You know, they can't just have this one and go like, all right, well, that's it. Especially right. if you've gathered all this money together that you want. Yeah. Do you have to keep your powder dry for the next time a door might even crack open a little? Do you go to the ACC? What do you do?
I mean, I'm a little surprised they didn't go to the ACC first, because, maybe they just had this opinion of Brett Yormark that he's a private equity guy and he would really be, and I'm sure he was. I'm sure if you pull Brett Yormark to the side today, he would say he's disappointed that that the president didn't go for this because he's a money guy. That's the language he talks, right? Mm-hmm. But Ed Scott, the AD here, came from Virginia. He's pretty well embedded in the ACC. But I think when you look at the Big 12 schools, right, and then you look at the ACC schools, Memphis just doesn't fit at all in terms of the ACC. I mean, I think Stanford and Cal would have a conniption fit if they had to share a league with Memphis. I think Duke would have a conniption fit if they had to send John Shire to play a road game in Memphis, every year. So I think they'll try to go to the ACC, but I really don't think they'll be that successful because I just don't think Memphis fits in terms of the brand there. I think they'd be competitive, but I think what we learned is that perception is just such a bitch to change, mm-hmm. and it doesn't really matter what you do. It's just people get dug in on what they believe, and they just are very, very, very slow to update their priors. And I think Memphis is just kind of a victim of that. They're not the first, and they're not going to be the last. But I think you're going to try to go to the ACC, probably to little success. And then I think your options are extremely limited. I think obviously they don't want to be in this league. So what I would do is I would go back to Pac-12. I would offer them football at the payout that they agreed to the last time. And I would give them the football program. And I would take most of it I was willing to give to the Big 12, and I would bribe the Big East and say, take my basketball program. And I would split Memphis football and Memphis basketball because you have to save basketball. And we're so excited about the series against Baylor. Like that's going to be a great series. It's going to be a ton of fun. But it's very, very difficult from January to March for a home schedule when I don't even know what the best home game is at this point. I mean, UAB, Tulane, I just don't even know. It's hemorrhaging money down there. They have to fix attendance. So I think desperately you've got to change basketball circumstance. So I would bribe the Big East. That would be my plan, and I do think that is on the table.
John, you can hear the passion. Some of the viewers and those that get in the chat room, which is a small portion of actually who's watching us or listening to us or whatever, they can feel the emotions. And you and I, when we traded those texts, I kept thinking, man, I got to get him on because I think people needed to hear you. That whether they agree with anything you're saying or they think it, wait a minute, I didn't know that. It does seem to be, like you said, you've lived there, you're born there, you work there, and you can feel it.
I think, how do you fix that? How do you fix the problem? I mean, Stephen A. Smith's going on first date, on a national television show, and he's reading out crime statistics about the city of Memphis. I don't think that's ever happened for any other city.